What is going on guys, Chris here, and in today's video I'm going to be continuing a little bit with my beginner speed solving series, and we're going to be looking at how to get better at look ahead when doing F2L. One of the main problems that I have when I do a solve on F2L is that I will move in my F2L pair and then I will stop and have to find the next pair, and then I'll stop and then I'll have to find the next pair until I've finally done F2L. The aim of this video is to make sure that you're always turning the puzzle and you never really have to stop and think about what you're going to do next, because you've identified each F2L pair before you've actually done the turn. So in this video I have 5 main tips and I'm just going to take you through them now, so let's get started. Okay, so number 1 is that you start slow turning. Now this one seems pretty obvious, but a lot of people overlook it. When I'm actually solving in a competition, I genuinely perform better if I do slow turns rather than fast turns. This is because if I do slow turns, I have time to process what's going on around me, and I'm able to look ahead a lot easier because the pieces aren't moving as quickly. You might argue that obviously you can't get as many turns in per second if you're doing slow turning, but it also gets rid of those little gaps in between F2L pairs where you have to stop and look around. A really good way to get around this is to actually get a slower cube, or like a budget cube. Now I'm not suggesting that you get a Rubik's brand or anything, because they are just terrible, but something like the Chi-Yu Warrior is a really good budget cube. It moves really quickly and it does have a few locking issues, but at the same time it will slow your turns down and allow you to look ahead a lot easier. Step 2 is also pretty self-explanatory, but you need to learn your colour scheme. There are so many people who try to use intuitive F2L when they're not quite familiar with the way that the cube works yet. Once you've got your cross done, you really should know where you are on the cube. So I know that this is white and green, this is orange, red, and therefore blue at the back. So when I start to match up my F2L pairs, I know exactly where this guy is going already, and I don't really need to look around the cube and see where it's going. You may not notice it, but you waste a lot of time when you have to rotate the cube, have a look around, and decide where it is you're putting your F2L pairs. So it's definitely worth learning the colour scheme and just getting familiar with where all of the stickers are and which colours are where. Step number 3 goes hand in hand with step 2, and that is to practice colour neutrality on the 3x3. Now, I assume that the most common one is to start with white as your cross. Now, it's very easy to get used to that and then you get really quick at it, but sometimes it's not the most convenient way to solve, so it's worth doing a couple of solves with either yellow as your cross face. And you will slow down, so definitely don't compete with this unless you're absolutely confident in it. But it's just a really nice way to kind of get used to different methods of solving, and you'll find that you'll actually get faster on your familiar face a lot faster as well. So it's definitely worth doing. Probably start with the opposite colour to what you're familiar with. So obviously I'm trying with yellow instead of white, and then you can move on to the other colours, and you will get much faster in general, not just with F2L. But it allows you to kind of process negative information and forget the pieces that you don't need to worry about. Okay, so step number 4 actually comes in the solve, and this is a little bit of solving advice. When you've just finished your cross, in this case it is white, you obviously need to identify all of your F2L pairs. And the way that I would suggest doing this, at least to begin with, if you're worrying about look ahead, is to try and identify your cross colour. As I said, it's white in this case, so I'm going to be looking around for the whites just because they're probably the easiest to see. And with one glance I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can see that these two here are already made in a pair. So I know that if I slot this into its gap down here, it's going to bring this guy out. So I'm just paying attention to this. Remember the slow turning? It has brought this guy out, but we also have this guy here and then this guy down here. And it's just a way to really make sure you keep on track of all the pieces as you go around. So now I have my 2 whites here, so I can slot this guy in, and that leaves me with this guy here, and all the time I know exactly where my corners are and where I'm going to put them. Now that wasn't the most efficient way to do that. I know there will be people watching this video who could have done that a lot faster, but remember, this is for beginners who don't really know how to look ahead. I'm also not that great at it. I'm just sharing some tips with how you can kind of speed up with your look ahead straight away. Okay, and my final tip for you guys, number 5, is probably the most obvious one, but also a tip that people just don't quite understand. This tip is to actually consciously look ahead when you do a solve. I imagine a lot of you guys are in a similar situation where you've solved the Rubik's Cube so many times, you don't even really need to think about it when you do it. But that's where you're going wrong. If you want to get really good at look ahead, it's going to take a lot of concentration, and you've got to spend the whole solve thinking about what you're going to do next. Otherwise, you're going to slip up or you're going to forget where you are. It's very important that every single turn you do matters and that you keep on track with what you're doing to the rest of the cube. And only that way will you be able to look ahead and make those seamless turns. It's really easy to get lazy and just use muscle memory, but it's also very important for practice and performing if you're in a competition that you keep focused and you make sure you're keeping track of everything at every single turn. I know that seems really obvious, but I've noticed myself when I've been doing solves that I've just not been thinking about it, and I've just been doing normal turns that I would do on a normal occasion, and it's not until you start to really think about what turns you're doing that you're going to improve. Alright then guys, that is it for this video. I hope you have found this useful. I know a lot of you guys are much faster than I am and can solve the cube in world record time, so don't worry if this video was not for you. This was for those people who are kind of getting a bit faster on their F2L but want to get even faster. Hopefully you guys have found this video interesting. If you have, remember to leave a like, leave a comment down below with videos that you want to see from me, and then of course subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have an awesome day.